But the Yena Shabbatorah, the Rebbe always said that if you understand the Pshat well, I mean, you understand the Amkus well too. On the one hand, I mean, the Rebbe brings to the Zohar says that a person who thinks that the Torah is stam stories and this gefährliche punishments. On the other hand, there are Pekorsim who say that everything that the Torah says is Mesholem. So the Rebbe said, this is Ein Aroich. This is the Zohar. HaKodesh says the stories happen kipshute. But if you think that the whole thing it's a story, that the Torah is a storybook, it's a Rachman al the Torah is not a storybook. The Rebbe always said, Torah Meloshen Hirah. On the other hand, the story happened kipshute. To say Chaz v'Sholom that the story didn't happen, that it's only a mashal, is Chaz v'Sholom to say that every prat in Torah is exactly the way it was as I kipshute. Elamai, the Zohar says that you have to say that everything hot apnimius and apnimius de pnimius. Sometimes when you understand good the pshat, you understand the pnimius. Okay. Dav Hashem HaMoshe Leimer, Dav Abnei Yisrael, V'marte Leim, Moed Hashem Hashem Tikroi Yisem Mikroi Kodesh, Elah Moedei, Sheishes Yamim, Teosem Alocha, V'yem Ashvi, Shabbos Shabbos Mikroi Kodesh, Kom Alocha V'sasu, Shabbos Sil Hashem, Kol B'chol Meshvei Elah Moed Hashem Mikroi Kodesh, Tikroi Yisem Moedei, Machlet Shishim Basa, Machodesh Ben Arbaim, Pesach Lashem, V'chimish Asiyam, Machodesh Zeh Chag HaMatzos, Hashem Shivas Yom HaMatzos Techeres. The pasuk goes on, maybe right, what does it? Sagt Rashi, Sheishes Yomim, Amayim in Shabbos, Etzel HaMoyedei, Lamet Chashukal Machal, As HaMoyedei Smalov Kilu Kilu Shabbos, B'cholim Kaim, As HaMoyedei Smalov Kilu Kilu Shabbos. What's the connection of Shabbos and Moyedei? To teach you, if a person Machal the Moyedei, like Machal Shabbos. A person Mekayim the Moyedei, Mekayim Shabbos. Rebbe has an interesting klal. Rashi never says his kasha. Rashi never says his kasha. 98% of Rashi's, there's no kasha. Why?
What's bothering Rashi?
Right. You always have to know what's bothering Rashi. Usually, the Rebbe's klal is, if Rashi asks a question, that's not his real question. Something else is his question. And he's answering a question with a question, the way a yid, when you ask him a question, he answers you with a question. But usually, the Rashi is not answering his question, because Rashi is expecting that a Talmud, which is a Ben Chomish L'Mikra, who let him gruntig, he's going to pick up his hand and ask the Rebbe exactly this question. Lamai, the Rebbe's klal is that the Rashi is always quoting bidiyuk, what the question, the words that are ma'ir the shaila.
Who is the Rebbe? Who is the Rashi Rebbe when he was 5 years old?
Good question. So let's learn quickly a piece of the Ramban and about another benegate to this discussion. Huh?
His father, not his
His father, in the first Rashi.
Wasn't that also no disciples doing?
He quotes all over Shas.
In the Gemara, not in the Chumash.
I don't know. She quotes. He quotes Doina, she quotes Menachem, he quotes. I don't know if there is a way. You can do a search. I can do that. Rashi in the Gemara. Yeah.
It's what? It's Fardi.
It's French.
French
Fardi. It's Haki. It's Fardi.
Skill.
He's descendant of Rashi.
Dag the number, we have Shema Moshe Leimer, Kasher Omer, Kol Moed Moed. Kedi Berishna, we mitzvah Moed, is Elishis, Kol Shabbos Lishtel Memen, Udin Moed. Even though it says V'dav Shema Moshe Leimer, Dav of Yisrael V'amart Alei Moed Hashem, Moed Hashem. Here are the Moedim. Elohim Moedoi. So what happened all of a sudden? Mein Yashmita Etzel Sinai. How did Sheiches Yomim fall into here? The Eibishter said, "I'm going to tell you the Moedim. Shabbos is not a Moed. What's going on over here?" Eloshis Kol Shabbos Lishlo Memen Udin Moedim. Lo Levayin Mitzvayse V'Seiroise. ולכן לא אומר בקרפת איש של השם כשאמר במועדים. הזכיר בסוף So he's saying that Bemis Fakert, the Torah wanted to say that Shabbos is not a moed. וזהו מדרש חכמים שאמרו, מה העניין אצל שבס אצל מועדס, כן שבס ולחם מועד השם כלל, רק סמוך הכוסף להם, וטעם מקרוי קודש, שיהיו ביום הזה כולם קרויים מן הסופרים לקדש היצא, כמצא על ישראל לקובץ ובייס אלוקים בימוי, לקדש יום בפרהסיה, בתפילה והלאה לקל ובצוס נגיע. ולעשות זה יהיה משתה. כמו שנאמר בקבולה, וכו איכל משמענו ושתום עמתק ושולח מונס לנוכן לכי קודש השם היום לדיננו, ואל תיעצו, כי חדווס השם היא מעוזך. The Nehemiah is explaining what the Torah said, Mikroi Kodesh, das is the Pshat, Mikroi Kodesh. Das is the Pshat, Mikroi Kodesh. Even though Pshat, when Nehemiah said, he's talking really about Rosh Hashanah. Hine Mikroi Kodesh, Meloshin Kroi Eide, Achere Ken Yechla Kruim. Mikroi Kodesh means the Choshev days in the year. Okay, Kol Mochen Haratzin, Val Mikroea, Amekaimes, Shenekroim Sham, Sheskapts of him Kruiede. Unculus Asoy, Loshna Shirikre, Eschamakris, Yam Moshem Ure. Chol Yem Sheyeru, Taso is a Kodesh. No, that in these days that have these Mu'uros, the days the Ebesh took Yinar Mitzrayim, Mishanik Matzah. That's why Unculus Taich, Mikroi Kodesh. But he says, I think, Pshat Mikroi Kodesh is a Chosheveteg. Kirui Ha'edus. Zeh Chosheveteg is very important days. Ben saying Amru, Arem B'Meichel Mishav Susn Kiyah Kolem Shelo Yachuk Chalachel Gachol Ksharyam Ala Taslam Mikra Shel Kodesh L'Shanoisem B'Meichel B'Malbish Mechol L'Kodesh V'zeh Gam Das Onkelus. So basically give me three pshat and what it means Mikra Kodesh. Either Mikra Kodesh means it's Choshevet days, or Mikra Kodesh means there's the days that have special events, or Mikra Kodesh means make a special thing that this day should stand out, that's nice bigodim, nice su'uda, nice blintzes, nice brisket, v'chulu.
What's the period of Shabbos? The Torah is saying Shabbos.
No, Fakir, it's saying that the Torah wanted to say that Shabbos is nicht amoyed.
Yeah, the Torah was saying Shabbos, no?
Yeah. Barbanel says, "V'dav Shem Moshe, v'mar toleim moed Shemad chedesh shvi achish yitzavay shitzivi izbarach lokenim shizar b'kedusha so kvodesh shlitam b'meisem pashat shen v'zased v'shakoin shia b'almum lo yigish laker korban pashat shishniya v'shakoin b'esitam lo yechol b'kachem pashat shlishi v'shlo yakrim v'mizbech kom shibamum pashat da'ala v'shor esad shivas yom lirot zelakom nishlashem b'spasha hey v'ama b'sef pashat seidlo v'lo yisachalo shem kochem v'nigdashtem tehem nesol shlo yakvoidem v'chul b'techem because Meretchen having the covet from Eibishten, so talking about the Moedim, Shevar b'nei Yisrael, Azmanim shechavdu Hashem, Bahem, B'zichim neflois, Kein Tzivi Yisborech, V'moedim, Kedesh Yismuch, V'yachoyge Bahem, Iskapsu, Kol Aschorim, Ladas, V'leras, V'lefnei Hashem, L'shtachos, Neged, Mekedoshi, L'harbetz, V'tzdokim, Matonis, L'vyein, L'samayach, Kana Hashem, Kol Tzad, L'zaycha, ולראיש לקאי יסבורך משגיח חלב ונפלוס ולקציב למוישה דבר בני ישראל ומרת להם מוידה שמקרוי קודש רצלם מדבר בני ישראל שהסכבצ לשמוע לבר להם מוידה שם כל אחד בפני עצמי לפי שהוי עניין המוידה תולוי במהלך השמש וירח וצורך עיבור השם שעשה כך מסרו ודה ומסו בבייס נגוד גדעיתם לכן במוידה השם שתקרו אויסו מקרוי קודש כי הנה כפי קריאוסם תהיה קדושוסם that the kedusha will be based on the kriya bezdin. We just learned in the Rambam, the Kiddush HaChodesh, mitzvah was to send shluchim, to make fires, volcane, and the bonfires, like Boimer. Mikroi Kodesh Oisam, HaMoyedim Shebezna Kol Yikru V'Yafarsalo. Mikro Kodesh means they have to go make a big koil koide. They have to make a big fire and make a big koil koide. The Klal Yisrael, the Shem Kodesh. Mikroi Kodesh. They have to make a big mikra, a koil koide, that everyone should know that these days are kodesh. Keloi tochen shechol ish yisrael yism charesh salavona. Eve yasa chag latzma shaloi ter shem achas kem rabes kfi edis kol ish kfi kamay hakaroim ayushim mitzrayim enem oisem yem akupur kamay sheoisem because tuntin tunana. That in Constantinople and in Egypt the Karaites have different days for Yom Kippur. Vayoshem bez the Mesek Yerushalayim gamkim Bilte maskimem loy elu imelu v'loy elu imelu. Kol echad boyde chag melibe v'tiyeh emes naderes. Lakach Mosach, it's interesting. Lakach Mosach is borech Adober azel beis nagodl, ubezel lever Yisrael ke'echad yavdu es alakim. Bottom line, the whole parsha is the kovetz from Eibishn, and Mikra Kodesh means that the Bezin has to make a big koil koida. Omnam amru oid kan ela moed Hashem nira she'ena choyze la moed mashazocha. Lo nimshich la masha amar acher v'linyan ha-Shabbos. Yomer shisaper v'yediyah l'nei Yisrael moed Hashem Hashem klum b'kriyosam. Ki hine omar zeh k'dei lavdila ma moed alaki she'ena torla b'kriyosam. Hu ha-Shabbos. V'lazamar ela moed Hashem sheishes yomim kilo omar. אבל מלבד המועדים שתלויה קריאוסם בחכם ובאזן הגודל, יש מועדים אחרים אלוקים שאינם תלויים בקריאוסם, והן שבוסס השם שששת יומים תעשה מלאכה ויום השביעי שבת שבוסם. ובאמס מקרא קודש וכל מלאכה לא תעשה בלא ששבת של השם רצלם ששבת ביום הזה במעשה בראשית, וינהג זה בכל המשווה שכל ארץ ובחוץ לארץ. תמיד היום הוא קודש השם אף מי שישראל לא יקדשו עושה. The Torah, in a way it's similar to the Rambam, but different. He's saying, Torah said, Eila moed Hashem mikroi kodesh. You have to make a big koil koida. You used to make fires, and the Rishonah they used to make big fires, and then the Kusim made jokes. They also did fires, so they sent shlupim. Bezin has an obligation to make a big koil koida. When is Yom Tov? So he said, oh, by the way, you should know, Shabbos is not that way. Sheishes Yomim, every Yid counts his own Sheishes Yomim. Every Yid counts his own Sheishes Yomim. But Yom Tov is totally in Bezin. Hine im Kain Amru Eila Moida Ina Yodoa Kim Bir in the Sin is Tzarech Leimer. Amru L'mayla Shetik Roisam L'fi Hashem Edem Ela Kim Belvat Kamei Shabbos Shezech L'mat Shem Kinoi Rehu B'Echid Shalom L'chenu Acher is Belvat Shabbos Hashem. At the end of the parsha, it said, Melvad Shabbos Hashem, Melvad Nidvesechem and Nidrechem. Vama Veloshen Medaber Ba'ade, Eilahem Moyede, Omehem Muchotzum Yisrok, Pima Shetzivalam Ala Chasom Shikla Hashem Lassas, Hemochen, Kefi Zem, Hashemuva Kan Inyan Shabbos, so Agav Gerora. It was Agav or Gerora. It's a little difficult to learn the Abarbanel. He throws in so many words sometimes, but it's like nobody else, he wants to make everything clear. He's mistama, like he's writing in Hebrew and he's thinking in Spanish. Me and you don't speak Spanish, so I bet you, if me and you spoke Spanish, isn't it like some Gedol Yisrael, when you read what they're saying, they're thinking in Yiddish. Yeah, matracht in Yiddish. And you say, I get it, matracht in Yiddish. I bet you, if me and you knew Spanish, it would all be Necha. But it's very geschmack. He's saying, yeah. Comprendo. So he's saying that the word is that there is the Moedim, they have a special nisim for the Yid. And that's totally the Bezin. And there is Shabbos, which is Chidush Ma'aseh Bereishis. And that's not totally in Bezin, that's totally in the Eibishter. So when he's talking about Moedim, Agav Geurche, he said that even though I told you that Mikroi Kodesh, Atam Afilu Shoygim, Atam Afilu Mazidim, you set the calendar. You set the calendar for the miracles that happened for you. Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah. But Shabbos Bereishis, which is the Eibishter, that you don't set the calendar. I set the calendar. The Ramban and the Barbanel cannot shnei neviim misnam the mistigno. They're both worried about how come we're talking about the Moedim. And mitnamol we mention Shabbos, and we're talking all the karbonos, and we don't mention the karbonos of Shabbos. So we're not trying to tell you about Shabbos. We're really trying to tell you about the Moedim. I want to tell you that Shabbos is different than the Moedim.
Let's talk about the Shabbos that happened animal.
Okay, exactly. Okay.
But on Kabbalat Shabbat, we say one sentence that Shabbat is more than all the Moedim.
For sure, Shabbos is more. You look at the punishments. Look at the punishment. A person desecrates the Shabbos, gets skila. Yom Kippur Kodesh, and Yom Tif, he gets malchus. It's a huge difference. Look at the punishment. It's a huge difference. Okay, let's do the Sicha. It happens to be a Gishmak Sicha. And it was a short Sicha. That Shabbos, the Rebbe said he sees the Elamas Chamatet. He was going to talk to another Rashi. And he says, Boys Inyan, but he decided to talk this Rashi because it's more Bekitza. Okay. Two kashas, simple kashas. Usually Rashi quotes what's his kasha. Rashi is bothered. Manya Shabbat Lamoyedis. Why is he quoting the word Sheishes Yomim? He should quote Shabbos Shabbosim. Shabbos, just the word Shabbos. Why is he quoting the word Sheishes Yomim? Sometimes, for example, it says also Sa'ifim. Rashi says in Bosel of Harshay, Mikra Rehu Leprokim. You know what? He quotes Bosel Sa'ifim, and he long Rashi. Remember we spoke about the story that the story that they said that Rashi once was walking and he heard galloping and he picked up his eyes and he saw a French noble woman riding on a horse, and he felt very bad. And then he said, as Ashkocha Protis, when he learned the Ephod, he figured that this is a sinner, the Rebbe told it by Fabrenga, that he said
Why do
that
you feel bad?
so his eye is looking at a woman.
Okay.
And then when he was writing the Pirush Hanash and the Ephod, he couldn't. And he said, I once saw a noble French woman riding on a horse, and I think that's the way the Ephod was of the Kohen Gadol. Like, read the Rashi. This explains.
But she was a pretty woman, probably.
No.
You know, the
But one is right, you should not look at it. That's it. But Hashem made that you should look. So he said, okay,
what did he
it's
say?
what Hashem made you walk
On the horse,
No.
in the carriage, there was something that looked
Not
like
a carriage. She was riding on the horse, and she was wearing an apron.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And he said, based on that, he understood and he visualized the apron of the Kohen Gadol.
Wow.
She wasn't wearing a kitchen apron that his mommy was wearing when she was making kugel. She was wearing a fancy apron
Royal apron.
with embroideries, with hulu, and he said, that's now I. So over there, to understand, because Rashi, and first of all, Rashi Taka quotes, but also as a ephod, the shaila is about an ephod. And over there, it's very complicated. And Rashi wants in the beginning, like, okay, you know what? Let me, Bashenkin here. Why you quote? If Rashi wants, he should write Sheish Hashem Begoyim. He doesn't want to quote the whole passage, but he could quote Shabbos. So why is he? He's talking about Shabbos. So why is he quoting Sheish Hashem? Another shaila is, and that's a typical shaila for the Rebbe L'chayra. Why is it Rashi starting with the negative? Why doesn't he start with the positive and then with the negative? Oh, you should always start with the positive first. Okay. The beard is a very gishmak beard, a very poshut. The Rebbe says that in pshat, what's the shaila? Why the Eibishter mentioned over here Shabbos next to the Moedim? There's a lot of reasons. Like the Barbanel said, like the Ramban said, that to tell you that Shabbos and Yom Tov is different, that Yom Tov is totally in Bezdin, even if they decide it's the wrong day, they could make it Mashenk and Shabbos. To tell you that Oichel Nefesh is mutter on Yom Tov, it's not mutter on Shabbos. It's not a big kasha. The Ramban and the Barbanel already answered good tirutzim. It's not a big kasha. So what's bothering Rashi is something else. But in the Aseret Adibris it says Sheishes Yomim Tavet V'Sitza Kol Malachtecha V'Yom Shvi Shabbos L'Shem Alekecha. Why does he have to say Sheishes Yomim? Just say Shabbos, because a person is going to say there's a lot of reasons why in Aseret. Yeah, why? But it's not a kasha. There's many tirutzim in that. Well, first of all, I'm shot. Person says, "How am I going to make a living?" So Eibishter says, "Don't worry." Sheishes Yomim Tavet V'Yom and Pshat. If you want to say a little better. You should know because the Eibishter worked for 6 days, you also should work. And also you should be Shabbos. Or you could say a third shot that Kishetova Shabbos Yebenecha Kilo Kol Malachtecha Asuya. Sheishes Yomim Tavet V'Yom Shvi Yebenecha. There's a lot of pshatim you could say in pshat. Why it says Sheishes Yomim Tavet? Never mind. Soon we can talk about the Mechilta Drash. In chat, why you say? But here, you can't say that. Here is not the place to talk about Shabbos. We're mentioning it, by the way, talking about Yom Tov. And by the way, we're mentioning, you should know Shabbos is a little different than Yom Tov. Shabbos is not totally in Bezdin. Shabbos, you're not allowed to do Eichel Nefesh. So why do you have to give me the whole spiel? Why are you telling me a whole long spiel? Sheishes yomim tasam aloch. Yom Shvi Shabbos Shabbosin. Loy tasam. What's the gay sheishes yomim tasam aloch? In Aseret Sadibris, I understand there's a lot of reasons in Aseret Sadibris that Eibishter introduced to Shabbos. He says sheishes yomim tavad, this is the kol malachtach, and then Yom Shvi Tishbis. But why here? Here it's Agav Geror. It's by the way. We're talking about Yom Tov, and we mentioned also Shabbos, and we want to contrast the difference of Shabbos and Yom Tov. So why does it have to give you a spiel Sheishes Yomim? That's what's bothering Rashi. That's why Rashi is quoting the words that's bothering it. Sheishes Yomim. Maza Sheishes Yomim. Why are you talking about Sheishes Yomim? That's what's bothering Rashi. Why are you talking about Sheishes Yomim? So Rashi's answering Akasha with Akasha. The Rebbe doesn't mention it here in the Sikh, but I'm telling you, this is the rule that Rebbe has. If Rashi asks a question in Rashi, that's not his real question. He's answering a question with a question. Sheishes Yomim. Why are you saying Sheishes Yomim? What is it negay here? The answer is, you can ask another question. Why is Shabbos here next to the Moedas? So it's not a very stark kasha. We can give a teretz, but based on the teretz from the Mechilta, I can answer why it's just Sheishes Yomim. What is it? What's the answer? If you look at the next Rashi, it says Shivas Yomim Matzas Toichelu. And Rashi says, what does it mean Shivas Yomim Matzas Toichelu? It should see Shiva Yomim, not Shiv As. What Shiv As Yomim Matzas Toichelu? No, not Shiv. I don't know if it's the bothers him left in the cave of the Loshen Shiv As, not Shiv O.
Quite tough in the end.
So Rashi says that the pshat is Rashi gets along Rashi. Rashi says Shivas Yomim Kol Mokim Shenema Shivas Shem Dabru Shavua Shel Yomim Vutze Shel Yomim Ritzufim V'chein Kol Loshen Shemoinas Sheishes Kameshes Shloishes. It means like this. It's not so deep. It's a part of that. When you say 6 days, there could be there's 6 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 separate days. We're in day 6 right now. Okay. What's the yachas of day 1 to day 6? Nothing. We're in day 6 right now. But then there is a tkufa. There's a tkufa from 49 days. Tzfiras Ayman. There's a tkufa of 8 days of a chag, 7 days of a chag. There's 7 days of the week. There's a tkufa. Sometimes it's just whatever it happens to be, you know. Charlie Buttons used to say, Merry Hanukkah. There's 282 days left of Hanukkah, the next Hanukkah. Manya Schmitz Eitzel had to say that because he was a funny guy and he wore a funny yarmulke and everyone smiled when he came to Simcha. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Charlie.
Shabbos is not Yom Shvi. Shabbos is not 5, 6, 7. No, 5, 6.
I want to tell you something about Charlie in a minute. Anyway, I want to finish this. So it's not 282 days left to Hanukkah. Merry Hanukkah.
So 287 days.
Yeah, of Hanukkah. But when we say Rashi saying Sheishes Yomim or Shivas Yomim means it's a tkufa of 7 days. So when the pasuk says Shivas Yomim Matzas Toichelu, there's a tkufa of Shivas Yomim, which is miyuchid, and in those days Matzas Toichelu. So the same thing over here. Rashi says Sheishes Yomim, that there is a tkufa called Sheishes Yomim. These 6 days you should do work.
The creation of the world.
6 days, the Eibusha created the world. Also, you should work for 6 days. But it's a tkufa, it's not stam. There's a tkufa where you're allowed to do malacha. Now we're saying, the pasuk is saying that when you're not allowed to do malacha, on the 7th and also on Yom Tov. So Rashi is saying, that's what Rashi is saying. But the Torah is saying, Sheishes Yomim, 6 days you're allowed to do malacha. And when you're not allowed to do malacha? On day 7, or on any day which is going to be a Yom Tov, like Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. And that's the pshat. And that's why Rashi says first, why? That the Torah is telling you that there's, even though that when it comes to Lagabi, the Oynish, when you learn that, you go through, it's wow, it's staggering. The difference of a Chil Shabbos and Chil Yom Kippur, Chil Yom Tov is huge. This is Skila. Chil Shabbos is Skila. Chil Yom Kippur is Kodesh. Chil Yom Tov is Malkus. It's a huge difference. It's not only 5 aliyahs, 6 aliyahs, 7 aliyahs. This guy's put to death. This guy gives up. I like the muffin. Man, up the haze. I get on Schmitz. But what's the big deal? Then he goes back home. It's a huge difference. So you'd say Shabbos and Yom Tov, it's day and night. It's very different. So the Torah wants to say, L'lametcha. The Torah wants to tell you, Shekol ha'machalas ha'moedes, malo olo v'akosov kilo chil Shabbos. It's not mamish the same. You can't tell me it's the same. This guy is being killed. He's putting the business killing him. This guy, Megitim Apor Schmitz. This guy was here. A guy was here. And he said it was no Torah, the first Malamed, and he was a troublemaker. And the Malamed said, "May they get Schmitz of the Hewin of the Hewin hin." So this guy chapped up Schmitz of the Hewin hin, but it's not a big deal. And this guy is skila. It's a huge difference. But the Torah is saying, but I want to be Medam Shabbos to Moedim. And what's the dimyan? Sheishis Yomim, you're allowed to do malacha. There's days you're not allowed to do malacha. Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuos, and in that aspect, Shabbos, Yom Tov, Yom Kippur is the same. Taka Lagabi the Lav, they're very different. Lagabi the Oynish is a huge difference. He gets a few schmitz and he goes home, and this guy, he gets executed. It's a huge difference. But in a certain aspect, Shabbos and Yom Tov and Yom Kippur, it's all the same. L'lametcha ki'ilu. Kol ha'machalas Shabbos and kol ha'machalas Yom Tov. It's ki'ilu the same. That's why Rashi is quoting Sheishas Yom. It's bothering him. Be'ikar is Sheishas Yom. What's the gay over here, Sheishas Yom? You're just bringing Shabbos agav urcha. So why are you throwing in Sheishas Yom? Rashi is answering that the reason the Torah really brought Shabbos here is that to be Medam Shabbos too, Moed is just like Shabbos. There's two things. There's the Isa Malacha, and there's a Tkufa when you're allowed to do Malacha. And then there's a Tkufa, it's not one of the days you're allowed to do Malacha. So when the Eibush said Sheishas Yomim, it doesn't only mean Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're allowed to work, and Friday, you're allowed to work. It means all the days you're allowed to work besides Shabbos and Yom Tov. And in that aspect, it's all the same. So if a Yid didn't keep or didn't malacha on Pesach, it's the same like he did malacha on Shabbos. Why? He was over on Sheishas Yomim Tavid. The Eibush said there's a tkufa. Sheishas Yomim doesn't mean Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. There's a tkufa of days where you're allowed to do malacha. A tkufa of Sheishas Yomim. There's days that are X, like having the calendar, days that are X. Which are the days that are X'd out? Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuos. These are days that are X'd out from Sheishas Yomim. So from here we learn that Kol HaMachalel, HaMoyedis, Malal HaKosav, Kilo Chilo Shabbos. Klal Hein, not the Shemei Lav, because in Torah is always this way. From the negative, you learn the positive. Shekol HaMekayim HaMoyedis, Malal and Kilo Kayim Shabbos.
That's why it's on the negative.
That's why it starts with the negative.
Interesting.
So that's the pshat. That's the posh 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 pshat. The Rebbe says the Yena Shel Torah is that there's a mechilta that says that Sheishas Yomim Tavid is a mitzvah sasei. Why is that a mitzvah to do malacha? Maybe he's a rich man.
Somebody else will do the job for him.
Yeah. No, because the Eibush wants that you should do malacha dafke, b'cholashet tase. The Eibush wants that a Yid should do beteva. We spoke about this on Shabbos. The Shema Bayakai, that he, like the Gemara Daf Yud Zayin Me'ila, on the one hand he went to Rome, on the other hand it was Ma'aseh Nisim. But it wasn't Nikir. He whispered. It wasn't Nikir, but he did Apiteva. He traveled to Rome and he did. So a Yid is to be ogelik that the Birchas Hashem, he tashe. But I'm going to do, why? Because that's what Eibishter wants. Shabbos, so why Shabbos is different? So the Rebbe says, Poshet. Shabbos, why Shabbos different? If we're doing malach such a Gahoy Ben Azar, so why Shabbos you're not allowed to do malach? Make it, if you're saying malach is a mitzvah say,
so what do we?
No, what's in this good?
It's only because the Torah says.
So what? So the Rebbe says because The Gemara says, "Man da machve b'machve kome malkechai misa." Person is standing in front of the melech. Instead of talking to the melech, he goes like this to his friend. He's meramas with his fingers to his.
Davening and using the phone at the same time.
The king has the right to kill him because it's disrespectful. So like this, during the week, the Shabbos, the Iker shines the neshama yeseda. So because the Iker is shining the neshama, so Yid is kami malka melech malcha melacham Kadosh Baruch Hu. He's standing in front of the melech. It's not shaykh to do malacha when you're standing in front of the melech. You're standing face to face with the Eibishter. So when you're standing face to face with the Eibishter, you learn Siddur, you learn Gemara, you say Tehillim, you daven, you have Suda Shabbos, you learn with your child. But it doesn't make sense to do malacha because the neshama is shining and so the you're face to face with the Eibishter. Mashenke in the 6 days, the Iker is not niked the neshama, it's niked the guf. And then the Torah says, Adarabah, 6 days a week, it's a mitzvah, a sefer yid to make a dida b'tachtonim, to bring kedusha into this world by having a regular job and by engaging with the world. So therefore, there's two tkufas. That's sheishes yomim. Sheishes yomim, it's a tkufa. There's two tkufas in a Jew's life. There's the days where Yid is obligated to engage with the world, and there's the days where Yid is obligated to engage with the Eibishter. So that's the shot. In that respect, Shabbos and Yom Tov is the Zal Bezach. When we're coming to punishment, to this, but when it comes in this Inyan, in the days of Shabbos and Yom Tov, a Yid is face to face with the Eibishter. Comes the other days, a Yid has to engage the world. It's mechuyev to engage the world. Sheishes Yom Tov is a mitzvah saseh. So that's the pnimius to what we just said. It's not stam. The pshat here is not stam. The Torah says, well, let's make believe Shabbos and Yom Tov is the same thing. It's not true. Shabbos and Yom Tov is not the same thing. If you desecrate the Shabbos, it's chiluf skila. If you desecrate Yom Tov, it's malchus. It's a huge difference. But the Torah is saying in pshat that still the Eibishter made two kufas in your life. The days you're allowed to work and the ways you're not allowed to work. And mitzad that, Shabbos and Yom Tov is the same. And also the pnimius. There's days that you're supposed to engage in the world and make a kiddush Hashem and make a dira b'tachtonim. And there's days that you have to spend with your neshama and be face to face with the Eibishter. And in that, Shabbos Yom Tov is all equal.
It's a question. Said by Gita Boyamon Balai.
Yeah.
That's question number one. If you go to work, I can do the Agita.
And the Gemara says that a person who learns as much time as he has, even if he learns only Perek Echad Shachris and Perek Echad Arvis, if that's the time he has to learn, he's Mekayim the mitzvah and Yisrael.
Second question, how people go to college learning the whole time and not going to work? It said you have to work for 6 days to make a living.
You send them the food over here.
Exactly.
Okay.
The truth is, good question. The Taka, it says Sheishes Yom Tov mitzvah say.
Hashem said that.
I know. But there is a yotzim in a klal. There is a yotzim in a klal. There's a Nikram B'Yachai, Hamad Chochem Nikri Shabbos. There's a yotzim in a klal. Okay.
So that's a totally like house business. It says so far 5 people working for me. My parents, whole parents, and my wife. Like it? לכל אחד צריך על זה. You have to discuss it. You like it, huh?
זה good. Okay, זה good. Chaim l'chaim.
Some people say 6 ימים תאוסף, not you.
The boil, there's not a big girl that wants to go to the farms. I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe we can make a fabring in here Thursday night.
How many have so far?
Very few people. We can make a fabring in here.
We made a fire last week.
We didn't make. Huh?
No big deal to make a fire in the
In the parking lot.
The parking lot.
And then the next day they call you. What happened is all black.
Okay, let's think about what we.
Pick the drum.
But you only
Huh? Yeah, the parking lot right here. Yeah. Yeah. Like a fire. We can make
like
some.
in trouble. You sure?
If we clean it up, it won't be trouble. If we get the cement pans that what should it cost? It's $30-40. You know the cement.
Fire pit like thing.
Yeah, we can figure it out.
And before we start the fire, they already started kind of like some neighbors called. So excited.
I'm a neighbor.
Yeah.
Save those best.
He used to make fire in your. I remember I came one time.
Is the last one?
Where would you make it?
My backyard, like this.
Okay, so but we can make it right here. We can make a
When in the nook show.
no, not in the place. Right here in the backyard.
Go in the place.
No, that's for sure.
Not now.
Yes, it is.
Okay, shkef for joining.